Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to our podcast. It's Coughlin.
What's up, it's Kai?
So, this episode we're just gonna, recap basically awards for the NFL season this year. It's a lot of good guys that's been playing well, and even coaches as well. So we'll dive right into it. I guess the main thing we got to start off with is it's MVP.
Yep.
So Kai, I'm let you take the floor with that.
Um, I feel like there's only one answer if you watch football, and it's Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? Like the way, like to be quite blunt, he's the best player on the best team in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like as
Hmm.
simple as that is, it's the truth. Like that man has carried that offense the entire year. You know what I mean? Like whether it's through the air, whether it's running the ball. You know what I mean? Like he's been putting on a show all year long.
Hmm.
But definitely when it comes down to it, just best player and best team, it has to be Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can't, deny that either. I mean, I got Lamar Jackson winning as well. I mean, I guess I'm like everything you said is I'm not even disagreeing with, but I guess the only other player you could even put into conversation, if you would, is CMC. Like
Yeah.
CMC, this man is different, man. And I'll tell you, and we'll get right into him pretty quick here, pretty quickly after this. But
Uh huh.
this man is different. He has 21 total touchdowns,
hmm
right? When you talk about a guy that not only can run the ball but also can also receive from the backfield as well, you
hmm
know. Um, but screw it. We already know that Lamar Jackson is going to win this because it was people could say it was Purdy for a while now, and then
hmm
after things transpired after that Ravens game. I'm a Niners fan, and I keep it real. Purdy had it in his hands, but when you show up like that and didn't really play well, you kind of
hmm
let it go, and then after that game. Lamar went on to dismantle the fucking Dolphins, like
Yeah.
what 5 touchdowns or something like that,
Yeah, it
and
was
then
after those 2 weeks. He had the award in the bag. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
in my opinion, I don't unless you're hating on Lamar Jackson. I don't know how you make a clear argument for anybody else. You know what I mean? Like you just said, Christian McCaffrey is a name that for the longest time was my MVP, but it's just one
Mhm.
of those things. But like you said, moving on to Offensive Player of the Year, it's got to be
Like
Christian McCaffrey. It
yeah,
has to
and then
be.
getting just uh on top of that, Christian McCaffrey, he's literally when you talk about a every down back, he's literally the definition of an every down back. Because
Absolutely.
because the main I guess quote unquote question mark about him is well, it's his injuries, right? Because he had two back to back seasons with the Panthers where he got injured, right?
Uh huh.
And he comes to the Niners. I see. My thing was oh, we're probably still we run like a committee type of system, right? We will give him less touches and stuff like that, right? But Kyle Shanahan is the fuck with that. He's the best player, right? So
As he
I'm going to give it
should.
to my best player, And so there's games where he'll go a game only missing one snap,
hmm
right? And so when you put it that way, it's oh, they're just overusing him or whatever, right? But no, when you think about it, if you got the best player and arguably the best player on the field,
hmm
you got to play him,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And
Especially on the
so,
offensive side of the ball. You know what I mean? And I
hmm
feel like for Offensive Player of the Year, like that's what the award is designed for. You know what I mean?
hmm
Like another guy that he had a hand in it would be Tyreek Hill, but I feel like the way he ended the season, you know what I mean, he was had a couple injuries, missed a couple games. I feel like that kind of took him out of the running. But
hmm
I feel like again, this is another award that you could give these guys the award right now. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
pretty much,
it's
yeah.
pretty straightforward. Lamar, but I mean, not Lamar, but Lamar for MVP and now CNC for Offensive Player of the Year. But with that
hmm
being said, who do you have for Defensive Player of the Year?
Defensive player of the year, and so defensive player of the year. I've been doing some research and like I've been watching games and I'm just be seeing like every week or so I'll just be checking what is like the rankings or like what is like the projections of who's going to win which award, right?
Hmm.
And for me, it's just mind boggling how like this guy is never even kind of mentioned or not even the top three mentioned, right, as like a defensive player of the year award. Uh, and that guy is T.J. Watt, man.
Oh.
Like year after year after year, man. Like this guy just won a defensive player of the year not too long ago, like a couple years ago or something
Hmm.
like that, right? But people got to understand, he is the sole reason why the Steelers even have a chance in any game. He is the sole reason why. He is the heart and soul of that team, man. When you
Easily.
talk about a guy that just him getting injured this season, right? But I'm pretty sure he didn't miss any games, but he went out for a few out like early in a couple games, right? But even then,
Hmm.
he has 19 sacks on the season. 19 sacks. You talking about a guy that did he break the sack record or he
He
was close?
tied
He
it.
tied it.
He
You talking
tied
about
it.
okay? So he had like 20 something sacks, right? And then he followed that back up a couple seasons later, 19 sacks. You don't see that often, man. You just don't. And you're
Hmm.
talking about like, and you want to talk about like brothers in the league. Take it for J.J. Watt for example, right? We saw how dominant he was, right? But in my opinion, the way T.J. Watt has been playing, shoot, he keeps it going. He might be better than J.J. He might be
We're
better.
gonna have to have that conversation.
Exactly. And that's later down the line, but like the amount of like disrespect that he gets, it's just insane, man. And yes, I know there's a couple other guys to mention, like Miles Garrett, and
Hmm.
for sure, Miles Garrett is a very very good defensive player. I mean, I'm pretty sure he generated the most pressures this year, right? I mean, and he was a part of like probably the second best, or if you some people want to call it the best defense, especially early on in the year,
Hmm.
right? And so that's totally fair. That's totally fair. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like so far we're 3 for 3 with the same picks. Like, it's crazy how, we're talking about a guy that already has a defensive player of the year, has tied the sack record, and he's still somehow underrated. You know what I mean? Like, he never gets talked about in the way that he really should. Like, when you talk about a
Mm-hmm.
game changer, when you talk about a game wrecker, when you talk about a guy that can literally single handedly turn the tide of any game, TJ Watt falls perfectly under that category. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
like no disrespect to guys like a Miles Garrett or a Micah Parsons or even a Deron Bland. You know what I mean? All those guys
Mm-hmm.
have had good seasons this year. But when I think about a guy that like really encapsulates what defensive player of the year is, like it
Yeah.
has to be TJ Watt. You know what I mean? Like, and not just the fact that he led the league in sacks, for what the third time in his career,
Yeah.
which is crazy. You know what I mean? But like literally all season, we've seen, how piss poor this, Pittsburgh Steelers offense has been. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it doesn't matter what quarterback they have in, whatever. The sole reason why they're in a position to make the playoffs is because of that defense, and the reason why is because of T.J. Watt. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if this wasn't, the MVP award wasn't so slanted towards quarterbacks and offensive players, you have to, kind of question like, is T.J. Watt the MVP? You know what I mean? When we
Right.
talk about really how valuable he is to his team, where if
Mm-hmm.
T.J. Watt is off of that team, I don't think they're sniffing the playoffs. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, it's fair. Yep.
but yeah, I feel like we're 3 for 3 so far.
Yeah, I mean, like, and just real quick, I mean, right now, if you guys don't already know, I mean, divisional round just went by, and then like the Steelers they played in the wild card round, and so like, him not being able to play that game, it showed. It
Oh,
showed
100%.
because like they were getting some pressure, but it's not the same Steelers defense that you see, you know,
No.
and so it just goes to show how much like the defense is just night and day with and without him,
Hmm.
right? But with that said, enough to talk. When we talked about MVP, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, I think it's time to show some love to some rookies, man.
Oh, absolutely.
And we talked about defense, so let's go back. Let's switch over back to the offense, and we
Hmm.
got offensive rookie of the year, and I think this is probably the hardest award to probably give to because
Hmm.
in my opinion, there's two really good guys that that deserves it,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
I feel like you probably had the same idea of like who the two guys are. So I'm just gonna say it. Like, you got Puka Nakua and CJ Stroud. Plain and simple,
Hmm.
man. And like, the main reasons why it's so hard is because first, let's talk about CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, he's the quarterback to Texans, and he basically let's talk. You want to talk about from worst to first? He went from worst team in the division, shit in the league, almost in the league,
Yeah.
right, to like the best team in
In
their
one
division.
season.
Exactly, right. So it goes to show when you find that franchise guy, right, it has a huge impact on like your whole rebuild situation. It just speeds up the
Oh,
process,
absolutely.
right? Especially when they come out playing like this, right?
Yeah, like I mean, if you're just talking about from the perspective of like rookie quarterback seasons, like
Mm-hmm.
this season has to be up there. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
with the likes of a Justin Herbert, with the likes of a Cam Newton. You know what I mean? Like where the likes of a Andrew Luck. You know what I mean? Where
Mm-hmm. Don't forget
these
Baker. Don't forget
Baker
Baker that rookie
Mayfield.
year.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like all of these seasons are like CJ Stroud's season has a seat at the table. You know what I mean? Where you can really have a conversation of was this the best quarterback season we've ever seen from a rookie? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like especially when you really tie in the whole team success aspect of it, right? Where you look at the numbers, but you also look at the wins and losses, where you have to like you look at this team how it was with Davis Mills running the show.
Yeah.
And you see it with CJ Stroud, it's like it's night and day. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, and this is what a franchise quarterback is supposed to look like. This is how a true
Exactly.
franchise quarterback is supposed to play like. So, and when you just talk about the positional value of quarterback, it's almost a no brainer, to give it to CJ Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
However,
Yep.
if
That's
this
that.
was any other year, it
Yep.
would be CJ Stroud.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I have to give it to Puka Nakua. You know what I mean? When you
Yeah, man.
break multiple rookie wide receiver records, right? And I mean, I guess this doesn't matter, but it's just, when we talk about storylines, this is not a guy that was a first round pick. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a guy that was a second round pick. Like, this was a
Day three
late
pick.
round guy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
This is a day three pick out of BYU. I don't know about you, but I never looked at BYU as like wide receiver university. You know what I mean? But this guy came in, broke the receptions record, and broke the yard record, and also being on a team, right? This is a veteran
Mm-hmm.
team that has won a Super Bowl. He
Yeah.
was the wide receiver one with Cooper Cup on his team, and was had a huge hand in leading them to the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even in the playoff game, which playoffs don't matter towards regular season stats,
Yeah.
but when you talk about like just pure talent, man, like next season, like
He's
the
so
player
good.
that he's so bro, like the player that Puka Nakua can become is crazy. You know what I mean? So like I said, he broke multiple records. You have to give it to number 17, man.
And yeah, and just real quick, just to add on to that, like, I'm a Niners fan, and so I saw it pretty early on. We saw him in week 2, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because like, after that first game that he had again, I forgot what team he played, but like after that first game he played, and we saw that he went off.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because like I was talking to like a couple guys before, like before, and it was like before the draft even started, right? I was doing like mock drafts and stuff like that, right? I constantly had, for as a coincidence, Puka Nakua, us drafting them in like the 6th or 7th round, right? But I didn't even
Wow.
think much. I didn't really think much of it. I was like, you know what, fine. It's not maybe not the end of the world. Fuck,
Yeah.
fuck.
I
It just
mean,
is.
listen, you guys got weapons, but just imagine. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So like Puka Nakua, I know we already know what Cup can do. I mean, Triple
Mm-hmm.
Crown, Offensive Player of the Year, like the year they
Super
won the
Bowl
Super Bowl,
MVP.
Super Bowl MVP, right? We know that we know what he can do, right? And then but you add another element of a Puka Nakua that can line up on frankly, anywhere, right?
Anywhere.
Anywhere. So I guess it takes I guess like the a lot of like pressure or a lot of load off of Cooper Cup, so that
Hmm.
it doesn't have to go to Cooper Cup every single play, right? You can
Yep.
shoulder that load, and I feel like Cooper Cup being out for the first like I guess like few games in the season really helped what's called Puka Nakua because
Absolutely.
it helped them build that connection with Matthew Stafford because the end of near last season, right? They were trying to figure out, damn, who's the other receiver that they can count on that's
Uh-huh.
not Cup, right? And so heading into this season, Cooper Cup is again injured, right? And they're trying to find out who's that guy that's going to step up. And
Uh-huh.
lo and behold, it's Puka Nakua. And like you said, he broke two records, right? And I get it, Stroud, he did miss 2 games, right? And
Hmm.
who knows what kind of stats or whatever he could have put up if he didn't miss those 2 games, right?
Hmm.
But that's the if and ands game.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is what actually happened, right?
Uh-huh.
And so Puka, he did his thing. He did his thing, man. So
You
with that
we 4 for
said,
4 so far.
yeah, it's 4 for 4. With that said, let's flip it over to the defensive player of the year. Defensive player of the
Okay.
year, man. Um,
Rookie.
uh,
Yeah.
you know what? I've done enough talking. I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah. Now, um, in my opinion, like when it came, really down to trying to figure out, my ballot, if I had a pick, if my opinion mattered, like this was the hardest one for me to choose. Um, and this is, no slight to any, defensive rookies this year, but it was just nobody that popped in the traditional sense. You know what I mean? Where
Hmm.
coming down to the end of the season, we all had some guy's name in our head, and for me, the guy that could close, kind of fit that with would be Jalen Carter. You know what I mean? Like he started off the season really fucking strong. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
where it was questions like, would he be like an All Pro as a rookie? You know what I mean? Like he was that dominant out the gate, and kind of along with him, same with the Eagles defense, it kind of took a slight decline. But I feel
Hmm.
like he showed enough. You know what I mean? Like he was always in every single game that I caught. You know what I mean? Of the Eagles, he always flashed. You know what I mean? He always made a play. um, I feel like as a rookie, like that's all you can really ask for, especially a first round pick, a top 10 pick. You ask for that, right? That's expected of you, and he answered the bell, right?
Hmm.
So really, it came down between him and Brian Branch of the Lions. I loved Brian Branch coming out of the
Hmm.
draft, so it didn't surprise me too much that he was having this level of production so early, but it really came down to those two, and
Hmm.
I just had to give it to Jalen Carter just because of the positional value of a D lineman, right? Like, and
Hmm.
this is a guy that's splitting time. It's not like that he's getting every single down. He has to
Yep.
split time with Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, all
Hmm.
those studs that they have on the D line. He's in rotation with. He's still putting up numbers. So, in my opinion, it has to be Jalen Carter.
Yeah, man. And like it's funny because like we didn't even talk about our predictions and stuff like that. So we're just waiting. This is like one time and go type of thing,
Uh-huh.
right? And so it's funny enough. I got Carter as well, but
5 for 5.
5 for 5. But like I'm, I feel like there was a lot of good. Like I feel like this rookie class in general, they produced a lot of good offensive and defensive guys. But
Hmm.
beyond the topic of defensive rookie of the years, you said. I mean, like you said already, Carter. Out of all the defensive rookies, he's been the most consistent,
Yes.
right? Right. There's a lot of rookies been up and down here and there, right? But like you said, throughout the whole entire season, when you look at it and all of its totality, he's been the most consistent out of all of them, right?
Hmm.
But with that said, you know, I do want to give a shout out to like a few other rookies that was balling on the defensive side,
Hmm.
right? And shoot, and one of them, like you already said, Brian Branch is one of them for sure, right? Another one I definitely got to mention is Devin Witherspoon. This man's gonna be,
Yes.
this man. I know I'd be talking trash on the
Uh-huh.
Seahawks because I hate the fucking Seahawks,
Oh, I
but
get it.
Witherspoon, when not playing the Niners, he's balling. He's balling, man. And I mean, I'm pretty sure he's like, he probably fell a little bit down, but he's
Hmm.
still probably like top 5 in pass deflections,
Yeah.
right? The main reason why he's not even, I guess, like, if he had more interceptions, I kind of say
Mhm.
that he might have been able to win it, right?
Yeah.
Because his teammate last year won it, right? Tariq Woolen, right? Because he had the interceptions, right? And
Well,
so,
in my opinion, Tariq Woolen should have won it. I mean,
mhm,
they gave it to Sauce, and don't get me wrong, Sauce was deserving of the award as well.
mhm,
But in my opinion, I was a Woolen guy in terms of that conversation. But
yeah,
like you
and
just like man, the Seahawks in back to back years picked two stud corners. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you don't
and
see that too often.
it's crazy because like the just real quick, like the other two guys that I wanted to mention for defensive player, defensive rookie of the year was like Kobe. You gotta talk about this. He slept on Kobe Turner, dude from the
Yes,
Rams, right?
yes,
I'm pretty sure he leads the rookies in sacks, I believe,
yes.
right? And talk about his teammate. Don't forget his teammate now, Byron Young from
Brian
Tennessee.
Young
Yeah, man. It's funny because all these three rookies I just named, they're in my freaking
in your
division.
division. And
For
and,
sure,
and, and
Puka.
I'll throw another name out there, right? And to be honest, he was my pick before he went down with injury. Christian
Ooh.
Gonzalez. Christian
Oh
Gonzalez
yes,
was
yes,
balling
yes.
before he
Uh
got
huh.
hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like if he never goes down, I feel like he runs away with this award. But, you know,
Exactly.
I was a fan of him, coming out of Oregon. So I'm very
Hmm.
curious to see how all of these players, whether it's CJ Stroud, Puka Nakua, all these guys, how their sophomore seasons are. You know what I mean? But I feel like with that being said, it's only right that we move on to the final award, um, and we'll see if we go 6 for 6, right?
Okay.
So I'll bounce it back to you. Who do you have for Coach of the Year?
Oh, we're going to coach of the year. I thought we were going to be comeback player of the year.
Nah, I mean, I guess we could do that too. Fuck it.
Okay, you know what? You said coach of the year, so we'll go with that first. Coach of the year. I called it before the season. Right? That said the Texans are going to make the playoffs, and I
Uh-huh.
said D'Amico Ryans is going to be coach of the year. And lo and behold,
Called it.
this man is undoubtedly the coach of the year. You cannot tell me otherwise.
Oh
You
no.
know, just mentioning CJ Stroud, not too long ago, right? About the offensive rookie of the year. Shoot, you're talking about a guy, D'Amico Ryans, that turned this defense into a
Yes.
whole different image of who he is as a person.
Yes.
Physical, intelligent, and like they just know where they're at the right spot at the right time,
Yes.
right? And him, being with the Niners for so long, ever since Kyle Shanahan was there, he brought in D'Amico as like a quality control, right? Slowly worked us up as a linebackers coach, and then eventually the defensive coordinator for 2 years, right? And see how he's done, right? So he's done a great job, and him just seeing him his journey going to like the Texans, it's just amazing, man. Like you just wouldn't think that a rookie coach and a rookie QB is
Mm-hmm.
going to succeed so fast,
Win the
right?
division. That's crazy.
Exactly. You don't see that often. You rarely see it. Shoot,
You rarely see
you
it.
rarely see it, right?
You know what I mean?
But I just think because of that, and considering they were like one of the worst teams in the league, shoot, they were top picking at the number two, right?
Yeah.
So it's just amazing what he's done with the Texans. And shoot, they won a playoff game against the Browns, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know playoffs shouldn't really affect regular season, but come on now, it's coach of the year, so it's got to consider something when you beat a Browns team with like what a top two, top three defense,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And
But
the Browns were red hot. You know what I mean? They
yeah,
were riding high. You know what I mean? They got Joe Flacco was balling, and he looked
hmm
very pedestrian against that defense. You know what I mean? Like like you said, like regular season award. But
hmm
just when you just I want to give my flowers to D'Amico Ryans a bit because you can't tell me that any other coach is going to have those guys playing like that. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like he was the perfect fit for that team, and
hmm
I'm he's another guy I'm excited to see. Really what he does next year.
Yeah, I'm for sure, man, and I'm just so excited to see what kind of linebackers he's gonna develop because, like, I've seen how he developed Warner, Greenlaw, shoot Aziz Al Shair, who's on the Titans right now, and a few other guys on our team right now that's still developing, right? So he's been a crucial part, especially on that linebacker course. So I'm just so intrigued at like how this whole like team is gonna go from many more years to come. But I will give some flowers to like some other coaches here and there, right? And I got to give some flowers to Kevin Stefanski, the Browns.
Yeah.
Man, you talking about when you lose your quarterback? Shoot, you had three starting QBs this season,
Uh huh.
three, right? You had Deshaun Watson, you had
I think they had more than that because then they had PJ Walker for a little
oh yeah,
bit,
you're
didn't
right,
they?
you're right. You
Then
probably had
they
more.
had the rookie, and now they got Joe Flacco. Like you got
Yeah.
four different quarterbacks.
And you still don't have as a fifth seed. And shoot, you could have won the. You almost could have won the division.
Uh
Granted, they had the Ravens
huh.
division, so it's kind of hard.
uh
But
huh.
still, they came out the fifth seed, so that's an accomplishment.
Just the fact
And,
that they made the playoffs was
mhm,
enough of an accomplishment. You know what I mean? When you lose, like I said, or like you were saying, like four different quarterbacks, you lose your best offensive player in Chubb. Like
mhm.
it's almost expected for that to be the end of your season, but he had those guys still performing, still showing up, and still winning games.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And I'm just and we'll get into this a little bit later, but like them, they just made a huge mistake, man. Like I just hate. They just made a huge mistake just
That's
letting
a
go of
conversation
Baker.
for another day.
Exactly. I don't want to
That's
get right into
yeah.
it.
We'll talk about Baker another day. But listen,
Exactly.
you're about to get me started. I feel like another coach I want to give his flowers to. Shortly is Mike Tomlin. You know what I mean? The fact
Ooh.
that, in my opinion, Mike Tomlin will be in the consideration for coach of the year every single year. He
Hmm.
drags this mediocre team to the playoffs, like, or to a winning record. Like, it makes no sense,
Hmm.
right? I don't care if they're 1-6. I don't care if they're 0-5. Somehow, some way, they will end this season with a positive record. Like, I don't know what juju this man has, but like, you can't tell me that this is not a coaching masterclass. Yeah, they didn't go undefeated. Yeah, they didn't have this crazy win total or whatever. But just the fact that their offense was so pedestrian and still made the playoffs, right?
Hmm.
Also, similarly, going through a carousel with the quarterback position and still made the playoffs. Again, I don't think that overtakes what D'Amico Ryans did, but I feel like he's another guy that just deserves his flowers.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just add one more guy into the mix. I think another guy that just deserves some flowers is 100%. And a lot of people might say, yeah, Dan Campbell, but you know, the guy I want to talk about is Matt Lafleur. And
Yeah,
you talk about a team, early on in the season where like they had a losing record like 3-6 or something like that.
uh huh,
They were railing, man, and then they just went on a whole run,
yeah,
right? And you talking about shoot, you want to talk about Austin Rookie of the Year? I mean, shoot, if you want to take account the last like what 6, 7, 8 games that Jordan Love has played, oh my god, like he only committed one turnover, and that
yeah.
was one interception. But you talking about when he had like what 20 something touchdowns to one interception, bro? That's literally the definition of Roger esque,
Yeah,
right?
and to add on to your point, like you lose a Hall of Fame quarterback, and then the
Mm-hmm.
very next year you still make the playoffs. Like,
Yep.
you can't tell me that coaching has nothing to do with that. Like, Matt Lafleur
Mm-hmm.
is easily a top 10 coach in this league, and
Oh yeah, one
this
hundred
was
percent.
his
Yeah.
this was his kind of redemption in terms of showing people that, okay, no, he isn't just good because he has number 12 at the helm.
Mm-hmm.
He could do it with a young quarterback, right? Trying to figure out his way, his first year being a starter, and
Exactly.
still went to the playoffs and had some success. So, but I feel like I forgot about it actually, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like we were talking about certain people, but I feel like it's time for us to talk about comeback player of the year. Who do you have?
Okay. So comeback player of the year. I mean, here's my take on it. I mean, I feel like if it was any other year, it would be given to a player that came back from like this from a season they had either had from a bad season, bad situation, or whatever, right? But my thing is that I feel like who is going to win it? it is going to be DeMar Hamlin. I mean, we saw a tragic incident that happened last year against the Bengals, right? Now, talking about football is like the most violent sport out there. You never want to see people get hurt like that, especially like he was on the verge of death, right? You just don't see that often, right? And so like praise up that he's even able to walk and shoot. He was able to play a couple snaps in the playoffs,
Hmm.
right? And so happy for him, right? But I feel like if you're actually talking about the definition of a comeback player of the year, it's got to be no question. It's Baker Mayfield, man.
Hmm.
And you can't tell me otherwise because this man was the number one overall pick. He was scapegoated out of Cleveland, right? Was on the streets trying to find a job. Went on to a few different teams, right? Like the Rams, the Panthers. Oh shoot, he almost came to the Niners at one point, right? But he found a home this year on like a prove it year contract, 1 year deal with the Bucks, right? Taking over Tom Brady, right? See what he can do, right? He was in a competition, QB competition against Kyle
Hmm.
Trask, a QB they drafted not too long ago, right? And
Second
so
round pick.
exactly, and so him going in there, proving himself, proving his worth, and going out there just balling, man, winning the division. Ultimately, I think it was clear early on in the season they were the best team in that division, for sure, right? But I mean, you don't just talk about the stats, man. He had 4,000 yards, 10 picks. He had nearly 30 touchdowns, right? He's proved that I'm like probably like shoot, I might go as far as top 15 QB. I might
Hmm.
go as far, right? But like you said, that might be a topic for another day. But he's proven to be like one of the better QBs in this league, and that him, just him, just like overcoming adversity in general,
Yeah.
right? Like you can only imagine. Like, could you imagine if Baker was still on that Browns team,
Yeah.
right? And so like it's just mind boggling. But Baker Mayfield, man, it's just an amazing story, and he's going to definitely earn the bag. And I've heard rumors if the Bucks don't sign him, the Vikings have an eye on him, which is going to be very interesting.
Listen, he'll have plenty of suitors after this season he had,
Mm-hmm.
and you know we just went 6 for 6 because I 100% agree on everything you just said. Right? Like,
Oh shit.
who do I
Okay.
think will probably win it? I think it'll probably be DeMar Hamlin, and I think I wouldn't really necessarily have an issue if he won it. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
But
Mm-hmm.
me personally, I would probably have to give it to Baker because everything you just said. Like when you just talk about just a straight up storyline, like this is something out of a movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to when you just talking about straight up facing adversity, there's no more adversity you can face than what Baker Mayfield has went through. You know what I mean? Heisman winner, went number 1 overall. You expect that to be, what I mean, smooth sailing, but it really wasn't. There were low lows that he had to, battle through, and it culminated in him in his first year with the team winning the division.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
not many guys can say that they have done that or can do that, right? Getting acclimated to a new playbook, a new city, all of that in 1 year, and at the end of the season, winning a playoff game. Like, this is. I feel as though I mean, there were some talks about Joe Flacco. In my opinion, I don't think he played enough games for him to qualify.
Yeah.
But I feel like if my opinion mattered, if I had a vote, it would go to Baker.
Yeah, 100%, man. And with that said, man, like, let's just recap it real quick. I mean, MVP, we got Lamar Jackson. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, we got CMC. Defensive Player of the Year, we got TJ Watt. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Puka Nakua. Defensive Player of the Year, Javon Carter. Let's see, Coach of the Year, D'Amico Ryans, and lastly but not least, we got comeback player of the year. And like we said, we would not we totally respect and we would not be mad at DeMar Hamlin winning it, but for us, if we were have to give a choice, it will be Baker Mayfield. And that said, man, like then that's where you guys come in. That's where you guys come in. You know, we're part of this community where we get a chance to talk to not only to each other but also to you guys. We want to get each other feedback. We want to get opinions about what do y'all think about the awards. Should like shoot maybe you guys have a name that we didn't even mention, right? And
Yeah,
we love to like get to know what you guys think about our takes and like what we didn't like what we said, what we didn't say. But
yeah.
like, yeah, man. I mean, looking forward to seeing you guys on the next podcast, and be on the lookout because the next podcast is going to be, a reaction to our, divisional round weekend.
Uh huh.
Shoot, that
We
we'll
got a
we'll,
lot to
we'll, we'll,
say.
we'll get into that one, and we'll
Hmm.
also have in that same video, we're also going to talk about our championship round weekend this week. So yeah. Anything else, Kai?
I'd just like to give a quick shout out to Javon Carter. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't sure if he played football, but quick shout out to Javon Carter. You guys in the comments, you know what I'm talking about. So you know, what I mean, like you said. With that being said, like, comment, subscribe, share, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, guys. Peace. All right.